Welcome to this episode of Wanderlust Solo Women Travel Unscripted. Real women, real stories, real journeys, and no filter. Join Gina, your host, to share the experiences and stories of solo female travelers and advocates from all over the world, with a mission to empower women of all ages, backgrounds, and life stages to embrace solo female travel with confidence and enthusiasm, while being authentic and real, unscripted. Confronting the challenges and apprehensions many women face when considering solo adventures, providing inspiration to break through those barriers. Sharing how life transitions, loss, and trauma can lead to amazing experiences, rediscovery, and life journeys. The good, the bad, and the ugly of authentic and honest travel. So let's throw out the script, get comfy, and jump right into this episode.
Joining me is Brittany Roberts. She is a teacher turned full-time travel blogger who loves sharing the best of the American Southwest. She focuses on ways we can support local businesses and Indigenous communities through tourism. Not heading to the Four Corners anytime soon? No problem. She loves teaching travellers how they can support Native American businesses from wherever they are. Join us as we delve into the concept of destination dupes, balance between seeking authentic experiences and so much more. Let's dive in. Welcome everyone, and thanks for tuning back into Wanderlust Solo Women Travel Unscripted, celebrating the wild and wonderful world of solo female travel. I'm so excited to welcome our next guest to the show, Brittany. Hi Brittany, thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Me too. Brittany is just all over travel. If you want to follow her, I'm going to put all her information down in the comments, and you would have learned a little bit about her in her bio, that in the intro. But I am so excited because you have so much insight to share, and the conversation is going to be so good. But to start each episode, I always ask a pass the parcel question. And I love this question because it's sort of going to tie into our conversation really, really well as well. So my question for you: what would be your biggest fear about taking a social media sabbatical?
Well, it is so wild that question landed on me, because on top of just the work that I do as a creator, so social media is a large part of my job, creating videos, filling group trips, and contacting people via social media. So there's that end. But then also I'm a freelancer. So I'm managing social media for other people. And I literally have to be on these platforms to understand what's coming, what are the macro trends. So I love that question so much. I think the biggest thing I'd be scared of at some point is FOMO, but not FOMO in the sense of missing out on what other people are saying, because I actually really don't care. Ironically, I used to hate social media, so we can talk about that too. I don't really care about what other people have to say as far as how I'm going to live my life, because I've never let that really control me. But I would feel like I'm missing out on opportunity. And I do think that's a really hard thing, because if you are a business owner or if you are a creative of any sort, you do miss out on opportunities by not being in the places where people are. And social media is, for better and worse, the public square, right? It's the town square where decisions are made, where things are discussed, where ideas are shared. And while that isn't the only place, obviously I love podcasting, I love websites and YouTube. It is a big place, and billions of people use it every day.
Yeah, and I think that is a really good thing about the FOMO, because I'm not a keyboard warrior, so I very rarely vent personal beliefs or comments. But as a business owner, I think, and for making connections, at the end of the day, it's how we met, is through social media and learning about social media, and a course, that I was introduced to through the Travel Coach Network. So there are amazing connections to be made. So it is a real big part of our lives now, for good or for bad. I think it's just how, like you said, how we go about managing it and navigating it is the real important bit. And this sort of ties into travel really well. Off mic, we were sort of talking about the impact social media has on travel and how we view it, or what we see and perceive. Now, I've just come back from Vietnam, had an amazing trip, but it was really interesting. I was 100% a tourist, and I know I obviously sometimes really talk about the traveler versus tourist theory, and I know that's something you're sort of quite passionate about too. And there is a way to embrace both ways of travel, and I sort of really want to touch on that, about how to have an authentic experience, but as an outsider looking in. How do you view that, or how do you see it and navigate it?
It's so hard because I know, especially from being on social media on both ends of it, like the thing that so many of us are taught to say is you have to plant your flag in the sand and you have to view something one way and you have to like go all in that perspective. But I think these things are more nuanced, right? We were talking about the traveler versus tourist thing. And on one hand, like I lived on a reservation for 5 years. That's a very unique American experience. I had privy to some amazing things that I probably will never be able to bring someone in on from a tourism perspective, even though I would love to show them that. It's not really my place to decide that for so many things. So, on one hand, I can totally see the social and socioeconomic implications of travel and tourism and how there's an unfair playing field and how the desire even for authentic experiences, locally driven experiences can lead to a type of voyeurism, which is really consumeristic. So there's that. On the other end, I am also not anti-tourist, right? Because I work in tourism and also because I see the value in taking a trip where you can take a break. And by the way, I even have a blog about seeing McDonald's menus around the world. So obviously I'm not anti-tourism, I'm not anti-capitalism, but I do think there's a balance. And I think that, all of us have certain privileges and backgrounds, and it's not about like erasing those because whatever we have is who we are. But I think it's about being aware of it wherever we go and just, being humble and understanding and willing to listen. And also just being okay with whoever is hosting you, whether it's like a local ed experience or a tour. Like there are some things that are meant for everybody, some things that are not meant for me, and that's okay. And I'm going to choose to enjoy whatever I have access to wherever I go.
Yeah, and I think that's really important because whether you see yourself as a tourist and a traveler, and to me they're just different ways of having an experience. It's, I think, making conscious choices about, say, if you are taking a tour or a group, you lead groups as well, so do I, is doing a little bit of research and choosing those ones that maybe are a little bit more ethical, that have strong connections within local communities, support local businesses, that the money is generated back into the local economy and things like that. So even though we can still say, okay, we're tourists and we are in a way contributing to some of the issues that we see around the world, there are ways to mitigate that impact that we have. What are some ideas or ways you could tell our listeners to make some of those conscious choices?
Well, one thing is by considering your sources. And this was part of the big question and about social media, right? Is where do we get our information and whom are we trusting? And again, I think that the popular stance is that we can only follow a few people and we have to follow whatever they say. I think you should definitely follow multiple perspectives, see what resonates with you, but then also consider the place. So if you were going to come to the American Southwest, which is where I live in Arizona. As I mentioned, I don't live on the reservation now, but I did live on there for 5 years. I would not trust someone who has not lived on the reservation or someone who's not there to lead travel there for a few different reasons. Not because I don't think they'd be well intentioned. I'm sure anyone who's interested in doing that, they're doing it for a good reason. I'm going to always trust that. But they just don't have the insider knowledge, right? Like, do they understand tribal permits? Do they understand etiquette? Not only across like working with Native populations everywhere, but then specifically with the Mountain Apache tribe, like have they consulted anybody there? So there are some places of like learning the language of the area. I think that makes a big difference. And then also, ironically, the places that are most visible, the tour companies and things, aren't always the ones that are actually making the hardest decisions every day, right? And sometimes they're not visible exactly because of that.
Yeah.
So it's first being making decisions that are legal and ethical. And then on top of that, it's like, okay, what is the best decision for me to make? And sometimes that means asking someone who has been there, asking someone who is from there. I know, like we mentioned Antelope Canyon. I can't remember if that was before or after we started talking on here, but Antelope Canyon is a major destination for people who come to Arizona. They're really coming for this one picture during this certain time of day. It is beautiful, but you have to go with the Navajo guide. That is part of the requirement. That's the legal requirement here. So, of course, like I would not spend hours trying to avoid that. I would just pay the Navajo guide whatever they want, whatever they feel like their thing is worth. I'm not going to try to get discounts or use coupon codes, even though that's something that seems innocent enough. That is something I would feel that's unethical because that's their business and their livelihood, and I'm trusting in that. So those are a few ideas. And then I would also say a little bit of that, the social media. If you are going to follow social media or podcasts, have you followed someone who's really committed to that area? So have they maybe created enough content? Have they written blog posts or newsletters showing how they're contributing? And I don't mean in a performative way, but have they built relationships there? Have they built a network? What are other people who live in the community saying about them? So yeah, those are just a few ideas.
No, that's really good. And I think we touched on, again, off mic, a bit about this whole destination dupes. You know, you're all over social media trends, and this is one of the trends you are seeing. And I think it's really relevant because when I was in Vietnam, obviously Vietnam is a tourist hotspot at the moment. I mean, went to Halong Bay, and I mean, it is stunning and it is beautiful, but the amount of boats and people there was very overwhelming for me, and it sort of did distract from the beauty of the place. But we did get an option of, instead of going to one of the normal places that all the tourists go, we got an option to go to a less known place that wasn't as busy. Obviously, we took option B because we didn't want to be in the queues. But I just loved you to share a bit about these destination dupes and how it's a little bit of a double-edged sword too, because do you want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah. Okay. So I love this trend. I also love macro trends on social media. So that's another thing I nerd out about. And macro trends in travel, because obviously social media is a big part of where we get our ideas now, right? So one of the biggest trends, and I'll say the one that precedes that one, is that we want an authentic or local experience. Like, raise your hand if you've wanted that. I'm raising my hand. I want that, right? Like, I want to connect with locals. I want to see places where nobody else is. Like, what a magical thing. You just said you opted for the lesser known. Really quick story before I get to destination dupes that made me think of 2 summers ago. I went on a sailing trip to Greece, and everybody, because I always ask, what's your favorite part, right? Everybody said unanimously, we went to this island. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. We went to this island where there was nobody else. So that was partially luck because the other skippers knew about it, the other sailors. We got there was nobody else. There was this Roman era amphitheater. There was pottery just on the ground. You could just pick it up. And I was like, I can't believe this stuff is here, that nobody has stolen all of this. This is amazing. Like, we were just walking around like on our own. I got the most incredible photos, not just of that, but like from up above. Like, it was magical. And it was like day 2 or 3 of the trip, and they all looked at me like, is this the best? Like, did we reach the top already? And I was in my head like, oh my gosh, now the level is set up here. Like, the best, I hope the rest of the trip is amazing, because I'm like, how am I going to top this? But yeah, it was amazing because nobody else knew about it. There was this exclusive secret club that we were not all a part of, right? It was Kia Island, by the way. I'm not going to gatekeep that. So KEA. You want to go check that out. So, but here's the double-edged sword, right? Everybody goes to Mykonos, Santorini, and they go to these places. And if I go online tomorrow and I talk about Kia Island, what's going to happen? The same thing has happened to Santorini and Mykonos. It's going to become the most popular place, understandably, and it will not be the same experience in 10 years that we had then, right? And that's how it is sometimes. I can go to the same place twice and have a totally different experience. But I share that because that is what we're really craving now. We are so inundated with so many messages of what's popular. We want something that's a little bit ours, right? That's actually ours. So that leads to the trend of destination dupes, which I love. It's so fun. You'll have a creator, influencer. You'll probably see this now that I've said it to you. You'll be more aware. And they'll say like, hey, instead of Tulum, Mexico, go to Tamarindo or La Fortuna in Costa Rica. And these are places that are popular, but not as popular as Tulum. Like Tulum, if you've been there recently, you know what I'm talking about. It's like highly touristed now. And I don't say that as a derogatory term. Like, I think tourism, like I said, is good, but it can hinder the experience if they're not managing it well, right? Like Iceland is experiencing that, right? So a destination dupe for Iceland might be to go to, oh my gosh, I totally left my brain. Let's say Norway. Norway's another touristed one, right? But like, they're going to say, let's go to the Swiss Alps. Swiss Alps is pretty busy too, but you get the idea. It's like going to a lesser known place. If I think of those islands, I will say them later. Madeira, Portugal, that place is getting more, those places are getting more busy. So it's like, anything you can think of that you've been like, it's so weird. I never heard of this place. And all of a sudden it's everywhere. I'm seeing it everywhere. That's how the trends work. But destination dupes, where they become the double-edged sword, is what I said earlier, right? If everybody talks about them, now those will become the go-to places for better and worse. And then you'll be in the same place, as far as like the same state, I should say, with the new place. So it's fun. It's a fun trend. But I also don't think that we can expect that we're ever going to have zero impact from travel. It's just not how it is, especially with social media. And I don't think we can just say no social media, because then I don't want travel to be completely inaccessible either. So this is something I've been thinking about a lot. I don't know what the solution is. It's a tough one.
I don't think there is, and you're so right. Everybody craves that personal travel experience that no one else has had. I went to this secret bay or found this secret shop or whatever. And then there's that you want to share that. And this is how any trend starts, because then they see that and then someone else wants to experience it. So it's finding that balance. But then sometimes I just coming back to my trip, sometimes maybe you need to just be in the moment a little bit more, even if you are in those incredibly over tourist destinations. Like when I was in Halong Bay, we were very fortunate. We had a whole junk boat to ourselves. We were a very small group, so we had this old boat to ourselves, which was really special. Even though we were in this hugely crowded bay, we stayed overnight in the bay, got up very early in the morning, and one of the young guys on the boat, he does Tai Chi, so they asked, did anyone want to go and do a Tai Chi in the morning? So we all got up on deck as sun is rising and did Tai Chi, and that's great. But one of the most special things, because there's eagles that nest, and this eagle came down and it just hovered over the top of us and just circled. And it was quiet. And even though we were in this mass tourism spot with all these, some of them quite crass boats around us, there was this one single moment that actually was, in a way, one of my favorite moments of the trip. And it was very simple. So I think we need to sort of embrace where we are a little bit and really, look beyond what we're just seeing, and look for those little things and those simple things. It doesn't matter where you are. Have you had any experiences like that yourself? I mean, it was a bit like what you said on the island. When you went, even in itself, it was quite a simple thing, but it had quite an impact.
Yeah, actually, it made me think of on that same trip, actually. So we went to this other island that has natural hot springs in there. And I didn't know it had this. So the skipper kept it secret from me as well, which I told him to do. I always tell people I work with, don't tell me everything. Right? Like, I want to be equally surprised. I want to capture that on my face, on people's faces. Like, it's good to have surprises in there. So we went to this place that was heavily touristed. You know how you just, like, when you go somewhere and you see everybody gathering, as human nature, you're like, why is everybody standing over there? You're like, oh, I don't get it. Why? So he didn't tell us why. And he's like, oh, let's go check out what they're looking at. He knew what was happening, right? But we all went over there and we were like, oh, what? And so we see all these people like sitting around, and you could tell some of them were local, and they were like, had a house in Athens, and they were just here for the weekend hanging out, because you can take a ferry between the islands as well. There were some kids who were playing. There's like this, they have like these old, again, Roman era aqueduct things that like bring the hot water to the front. So there were kids like playing with it and making spouts out of it and stuff. And at first, some of the people in my group were like, are we going in there? It's kind of crowded. I'm like, let's go, ladies. Like, this is part of the interaction. We get to hang out with people who are actually from Greece. Like, this is kind of fun. And the banter between the local, there was like a group of like middle-aged men there. The banter between them and my group was so funny. And I couldn't have created that myself, like on our own, And they were even making fun of us because we were Americans, because they were all wearing like as little as possible. There was one spring that was completely naked, and we were like, no, we're not going to go over there. We're going to stay over here. Like, we're a little more comfortable. And even our swimsuits were like full one piece, So it was just like a fun cultural exchange moment. And we were even saying how funny it was that all the signs said like, no alcohol, no cigarettes. They all had cigarettes. They were all drinking. And so we were over here trying to like, follow the rules. And they were like, whatever about those rules. You're in Greece now. Like, no one's here. Like, we're in nature. I don't know. So it was just one of those things where it was like, okay, this is exactly what I wanted, even though I wouldn't have been able to anticipate it. This is what I wanted for the trip to be. I wanted the interaction with locals. It was organic. I couldn't have planned it even if I wanted to. And if we had stumbled upon those springs and been the only ones, that would have been another one where they were like, wow, are you planning this, Brittany? Because this is amazing. And that would have been its own serene experience. I would have gotten amazing photos. Instead, the photos I got are actually really funny because they photobombed every single photo I tried to take. So I was thinking, oh, I'm going to have this beautiful sales page for the next trip. And they're all on there. And I even thought about like, oh, should I take this off? But actually, I think it makes it even funnier. So like on the first few photos, it's like beautiful, curated pictures. And then as you keep sliding, it gets more and more ridiculous as you see like the other experiences we had. But I mean, those are the things that the people who I interviewed and said like, what did you like best? those are the top two moments. And I was like,
Yeah.
really? And like hanging out with the guys in there, but it's just because they were having a good time, and that's part of what we really want, right? Like, I mean, I know the group trips I host so that they can make friends with each other as travelers, but people are also craving connection. Ironically,
Yeah.
especially in the social media era, we're all connected more than ever, but we don't actually have connections. That's it's a big difference.
And I think that really leads on to another topic I wanted to talk about is making friends as adults. I'm a strong believer that with our online presence, we are more connected than ever, but we are the most disconnected we have ever been. And I think as an adult, especially if you don't have children, say, it's really hard to make connections and friends. Unless you're involved in community sports or something like that, children really help because you obviously go to their activities and stuff. But if you haven't got those things, how do we make connections these days? I mean, and the group, like was just saying, my travel group in Vietnam, never met them before. There was a couple from Wales, a couple from England, a lady from Catalonia in Spain, and two Australian girls. We got on like a house on fire, and I'm actually really missing them. We were called the Sunshine Family, and I'm really missing them right now. So it is an incredible way to make new friends, and a lot of the barriers we have, I think, come down very quickly because we're put in situations, normal day-to-day life we probably wouldn't be in. I'm sure you've found that with your groups and your own travels.
Yeah, it's really strange because when you're around strangers, I think you're more willing to take risks in a way, right? Like
Yeah.
you're like, well, whatever, they're never going to see me again, so I'm just going to go for it,
Yeah.
right? Like that's what I found for myself, that I have done things that were way out of my comfort zone because I didn't think it was going to be recorded, even though I don't care if it is. But if people take pictures or whatever, so that's like hostel life. I mean, when I first discovered
Yeah.
travel in my early I was like, this is amazing. And I would just bare my soul to this girl who I was never going to see again, and we'd be crying at the end of the night and like, we know everything about each other. It's just so fascinating how that happens. But ironically, those people who I was quote unquote never going to see again, guess what? I talk to all of them and I have plans to go see, like some of them I've actually seen multiple times. This one girl I met at a hostel last March. Same thing. She's actually like 15 years younger than me. And I even had that weird feeling of like, am I going to be the grandma here? I'm 37, so I don't even feel like I'm really old, but in hostel, I'm old. So I'm like, am I going to be like the grandma here? But that just wasn't it at all. We like connected over our love for traveling, over our love for visiting places multiple times. That was both of our like sixth time to Ireland. And I was like, that's awesome that you're going back so many times and you're so young. So I don't know. I just think it makes you more open, and also travel makes you more open to meet people that maybe you wouldn't have connected with otherwise. Because like, where would I have connected with this girl who's younger than me? Like, we don't have like where in life in the society would we have connected? So I just think it's so cool. What you said about the not having kids thing is so true. I'm very active in my church. And it's always this weird unspoken thing, even if you're married, because I'm also married, I just don't have a ring, but I'm married and we don't have kids yet. And so it's weird because we're almost 40. So we're too quote unquote old to hang out with the younger couples, but then we also can't hang out with, I mean, we do hang out with them, but it's different, right? We don't have
Yeah.
that same shared thing of life. So I think, yeah, it is really hard if you don't have kids, whether that was a decision or whether, you're still hoping or that ship has sailed, whatever it is, like it can be really hard and sometimes painful to make friends. And I think ironically, you really just have to take yourself out of the day to day, because when you focus on yourself, this is my experience anyway, when you focus on yourself, it's hard to make friends, right? Because you're like focused on how you look or what people think of you or what you have to do. So when you completely remove that and you're like, I'm just going to be fully present, I'm just going to enjoy where I am, the people who are around me. And that's why I said, ironically, when I think I'm never going to see somebody again, I think I'm probably a better listener too. Like I listen to them, like I'm fully present with them. And that ironically creates a better friendship. I see them later on, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that travel is essential for that. And I've definitely experienced that on my group trips. I very intentionally curate that. Like I want them to have the chance to talk with each other. I even tell my teachers now, I do a lot of teacher trips. And one of my rules is you can't talk about teaching you can't complain about about the kids. Like it has to be other stuff. And that's really hard the first couple of days. Like, well, who am I outside of being a teacher? Like, this is what I do all day, every day. And so it forces you to think about your hobbies and your interests and your passions and like who are you outside of this stuff? But it's very transformative. Like, okay, actually I am a whole person outside of my job and outside of my family structure.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's hard to do that. I think even if you have kids, it's hard to do that. But for us without kids, like, yeah, it's an intention. Takes energy.
That's such a good point because, in our day-to-day lives with our friends and family, what do we talk about? We talk about work. We talk about our personal relationship, our husband, our partner, whatever, good or bad. If you have kids, you talk about kids. So when you strip all that away, it comes back to just you. And I think that's a really, really good point because I think I've made such amazing connections and it's exactly what you said about the girl you met in the hostel. And it's happened both ways, shared so much within the first 24 hours, that some of my best friends probably don't even know. But I think because there's no judgment. So it's coming from a real raw and authentic place. These people aren't here to judge you. You're not judging them. You're all on the same level. You're all starting at the same spot. And it's up to you how much you want to share or don't want to share. And I think it's actually a really beautiful experience when you bond with people on that level. And they do become lifelong friends. Some of my best friends, I might not see them, I might even only see them once a year if we're lucky, but it's like we've just met again. But I've had those friends for years now, met from traveling. And I think, what you touched on there is so true. And I embrace any of our listeners to go and actually, experience that for themselves. If it's one thing I can advocate for traveling, it's that breaking barriers in the sense that you get to connect with people in life that, like you said, you wouldn't otherwise. They're outside of your circle. And I think that really broadens your mind and your perspectives and the way you view the world because you have such a broader friend basis from that, whether they're young or old. That's the thing that two of the girls, they were only 22 and 23. One of the ladies, she was in her 70s. It didn't matter. We were all there for the same thing.
So beautiful. And I think that's also the funny thing is like we're often thinking about if we're going to fit in, if the others or the group is going to accept us, but we sometimes automatically exclude other people without even
Yes.
realizing that we're doing it. Like you just mentioned the age thing. I mean, even the traveler tourist debate, like I can't tell you how many times on the internet, especially someone will if they just see my McDonald's post, which by the way, I started that for fun and also for connection, right? But like, and ironically, that's been the quickest growing thing. Go figure. But so when I started talking about that, they're just like, don't you care about locals? And I'm like, have you seen all of my other content? Like of course I do.
Yeah.
I think there's room for nuance, right? And then also someday, maybe I'll come back and talk about all the things McDonald's does for communities. But anyway, it's like, yeah, we don't even realize that sometimes we're the ones that are judging and sometimes excluding people because of one little thing that we see. We make these snap judgments and we tell ourselves stories. And I know I definitely do that. I'll speak for myself
Yeah.
there. So I think traveling also takes me out of that, right? Because it puts me in a state of gratitude. It puts me in a state of also having to think on my feet. Like I can get so comfortable in a routine. I love a good routine, But when I'm forced to get uncomfortable and have to think every day, or like even just be humbled to the sense of like, oh, wow, okay, now I'm in a place I don't speak the language. And like, I'm going to have to speak a few phrases in this language. I'm probably saying everything wrong. And like, I hope I don't offend anybody. And so being in that state is a good thing. It's a good practice, I really do think. And I think that puts you in a better readiness to make friends when you're like willing to listen and be humbled that way.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's just a lovely way to sort of round out this episode too, and just to embrace travel just in general. I think because it has so many positive things, I think it can give us in our life growth in general, I think is so important. With our next guest, because we always sort of round this off the way we started it, do you have a question you'd love to ask them?
Yeah, it's really into what we've been talking about this whole time, which is if you took out all social media, maybe even weren't even able to post it, where would you go? And it sounds like that's a really easy question, but we were even doing this as an exercise before. It's actually quite hard because where else would you hear of this place? Who would tell you? How would you find out? And why would you go? What would you do when you get there if you don't find it on social media? So where would you go if it were not for social media? I think I'm excited to tune in and see who
Yeah,
answered that and what they say.
I'm really interested. Like I said, I intentionally on my Vietnam trip didn't research anything. For that one reason, I didn't want to compare it to anything. Obviously stuff was coming up in my feed, but I didn't want to have that comparison. So I was pleasantly surprised. I love that, when you're pleasantly surprised about a place, because I hadn't over researched it. And I'm one that usually researches everything to death. So this was quite an exercise in the opposite direction for me, and I actually really enjoyed doing it. So I'm going to look forward to the answer of our next guest, how that one plays out. And just for a little bit of fun too, we have our quick fire round. So it'll just be 4 or 5 questions. So just roll with it and just give me the first thing that comes to mind. Your favorite movie that's travel inspired or inspires you to travel?
Memoirs of a Geisha. It's my favorite movie. It's beautiful. Rob Marshall directed it. And Japan is still on my list. I've not gone, but it's partially because of that movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And I even want to go more now after being in Vietnam. So I love that answer. What is the best thing you've eaten while traveling?
Oh my gosh. I was going to say McDonald's as a joke, but that's not my real answer. That's not my real answer though. Okay. My real answer is this meal. I wish I could tell you the restaurant, but it was in Leavenworth, Washington. It's a very cute town. It's like a Hallmark movie. Actually, they filmed a lot of Hallmark movies there. And if I can find it, I'll give it to you if you want to recommend it to people. But it is the first place where I had a bite and said, "Oh my God," like exclaimed in the restaurant. And people were looking at me like, "What?" And I was like, "This is the best food I've ever had." And I still tell people, if you're a foodie, you need to go to Leavenworth, Washington, because every restaurant we went to that weekend, I just went with my husband, was so good and very affordable. It wasn't like it was expensive, but I just think like a lot of people from all over the world, they just love the mountain atmosphere. It kind of feels like we're talking about Dupes. It feels like Bavaria. So if you love that like feel of Germany, it's just a place to go.
Awesome. Backpack or suitcase?
I'll just say backpack. It's a hard one though. Backpack.
What is one country, because it's sort of what you were talking about earlier, what is one country you'd go back to again and again?
Ireland, 100%. Love the culture, love the people, never have a bad time there.
Cityscape or nature retreat?
Nature retreat, 100%.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brittany. And is there anything you want to share, anything you're working on right now, anything you'd love to promote or have offers on, or you'd love people to check out your blog? I mean, you've got so many things going on. So where would you like to direct everyone?
Yeah, I know. That's the hardest part, right? Yeah, I think y'all would get the most value from me on one of my Instagram accounts. If you're interested in the American Southwest, I've been talking and sharing a lot more of a local's perspective over on Travel the Southwest. Nice and easy handle on Instagram. You can go follow me there. If you're interested in teaching on a reservation, I know we didn't really talk about that, but that was kind of what kicked this whole thing off.
Yeah.
If you're interested in that or just reading my time there, because I share everything on there, you can go to teachblogtravel.com or teachblogtravel on Instagram and learn more about that.
I'd actually love to do another episode about those experiences you've had, because I think they're very unique and a lot of people would be really interested. But I'm going to pop all of Brittany's info and contact details down in the comments. But thank you so much for joining us. It's been wonderful having you here, Brittany.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Awesome. And remember to stay tuned to our next episode, and it's never too late to unleash your wanderlust.
Thanks for listening. Please share the love by liking, commenting, or subscribing, or join us in our Facebook community.